Good morning, students. Welcome all. Today I'm going to discuss a new topic, desktops, Genome and KDE. So first of all, I will tell you about desktops, Genome, KDE in Linux operating system. That is basically the main difference between Genome and KDE is that the Genome is a desktop environment that provides the simplicity, accessibility, ease of internationalization, and localization. Okay. So while KDE is a desktop environment that provides basic functions and applications to perform daily tasks. Understand? Again, I repeat the definition of a genome and KDE. The main key difference between genome and KDE is that the genome is a desktop environment that provides who genome that provides simplicity, accessibility, ease of internationalization, and localization, while KDE is a desktop environment that provides basic functions and applications to perform daily tasks. So in this lecture, we will discuss various desktops like Genome and KDE, features of a Genome and KDE, what is the Access architecture, and so many things we will discuss in this lecture. So let's start. So first of all, structure of the chapter is we will discuss in this objectives first, introduction, X windows. So in X windows, X histories, X architectures, X downside, genome, genome features, genome shell, genome application, starting genome, genome configuration tools, and KDE. So KDE as a project, KDE features, KDE application. So in this chapter, we will discuss these topics. Okay. So what is the objective of this chapter? The objective of this chapter is to familiarize the student with the X Windows system and its architecture and limitations, and what is a genome and what is KDE. Okay. So basically, again, I will tell you about the main difference between Genome and KDE is that the Genome is a desktop environment where it provides the simplicity and accessibility, ease of internationalization, accessibility, localization, while KDE is a desktop environment that provides the basic functions and applications to perform daily tasks. Okay. So what is X window basically? So introduction of X window system is an environment that supports graphical applications in Linux. So there are many graphical applications in Windows operating system in the case of Windows operating system, but in the case of Linux operating system, it will provide through X windows graphical application support by X window. X window system is an environment that support graphical application in Linux. So X window provides the basic framework for a GUI environment, such as interacting with the mouse and keyboard on the window. So our Linux operating system is a CUI, means CLI, means command user interface basically, and command line interface basically. But it also supports graphical applications through X windows. Yes, it's possible through X windows. Okay. So GUI environment such as interacting with the mouse and keyboard on the window. So the X window desktop system is an advanced graphical computing and networking environment that mainly supports desktop environment like Genome and KDE. So in this topic, Genome and KDE support desktop environment like graphical user interface environment. So Genome and Kde are desktop environment which run on the X Windows system. Okay. Both of these have varying a number of features which are discussed in detail in this chapter. Okay, so let's start. First of all, what is X Windows and X history? On your screen, you see the X Windows system, commonly known as X, and is highly configurable, cross-platform, complete, and free client server system for managing graphical user interfaces on single computers and on networks of computers. So basically, what is uh, X Windows basically? So the X Windows system, like AKA 1011, AKA 1011. So is a client server network protocol. What it is? Client server network protocol that been used for decades on a variety of different hardware platforms. Okay, so it has been implemented by a number of different vendors for a wide variety of hardware platform. So in Ubuntu, I'm talking about right now X Windows. Okay, so in Ubuntu, we ship 1011 as implemented by the X organization project on Linux. Okay, so basically, X is a what is X basically? This is what is X basically? The X is designed as a client server architecture. Again, I repeat, X is designed as a client server architecture. Okay. So the client communicate to the X server using the X11 network protocol. This is very important line. Okay. Very important line. What is X basically? X is designed as a client server. Basically is a client server architecture. Okay. Client server architecture. The client communicate to the X server. The clients communicate to the X server using the X11 network protocol. Fine. And clients can run locally to the X server or remotely on other machines. Okay. So it's run on locally machine and remotely on other machines. Okay, so this is the basic definition of X window. Okay, so what is the X history? So the X window system was created by Robert Schaeffler and his team under the project Athena at MIT USA. MIT USA in cooperation with Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC. Okay, so it was officially released as 1011 in 1987. So basically it was officially released as 1011 in 1987 in the year 1988. Okay, so this is the basic definition of X Windows and X history. Okay, so the simple line and simple definition of X window is a X is a designed as a client server architecture. Okay, the client communicate to the X server using the X11 network protocol. Fine. Here you see X architecture. So X uses a client server model. Okay, so where X server communicate with the various client programs. Fine. It accepts requests for a graphical output on Windows and send back user inputs from keyboard, okay, mouse or touch screen. So this is the basic architecture of X architecture. In this, X server communicates with various client programs. Okay. So here X server is a user's terminal which provides display and input output services to different client applications. So it acts as an application displaying to a window of another display system. This is the first point of X server is user terminal, which provide display and input services to different client applications. And second point is a system program controlling the video output of a PC, a dedicated piece of hardware. So this is the definition of X architecture. Okay. So basically it's a X server communicate with the various client program. Here you see X architecture and X client application itself may emulate an X server by providing display services to other clients. So this is known as X nesting. To use an X client application on a remote machine, the user may do the following. On the local machine, open a terminal window, use SSH with the X forwarding argument to connect to remote machine as per our requirement. Okay, so request local display input service. Fine. So here is the diagram of a remote machine where X client is connected to X server through keyboard, mouse, screen. So these are the user workstation where the remote X client application will then make a connection to the user local X server. So providing display and input to the user. Fine. So this is the basic diagram of a remote machine. So here X is a downside. There are many limitations of X Windows system like user interface issues, client server separation, network issue. So basically, what is a genome actually? I will tell you. Genome is a graphical desktop environment. What is it? Genome is a graphical desktop environment that runs on the top of computer operating system. Genome is a graphical. What this one? Genome. Genome is a graphical desktop environment that runs on top of the computer operating system, composed entirely of free and open source software. So basically, this is a open, free, and open source software. While KDE, this one, KDE. So KDE is a desktop environment for an integrated set of cross-platform applications. Okay, designed to run on Linux, Microsoft Windows, etc. But if we are talking about Genome, Genome is a more stable and user friendly rather than KDE. So Genome, this one, Genome is a more stable and user friendly. Okay, while KDE consumes more resources than Genome. So the user can choose one of them according to their choice. Okay. So here X side, X downside, there are many limitation of X Windows system like user interface issues, client server separation, and network issues. Okay. So what is user interface issue? There are many interfaces available for X Windows which have different appearance and performance. So it becomes difficult for user to interact with them. So sometimes there are many interfaces available for X Windows which have different appearance. Okay, so it's quite difficult for user to interact with them. Okay, so next is limitation of X downside is your client server app separation. So X design requires the clients and server to operate separately. This is another limitation of client server separation. So this separation or independence incurs overhead. The reason of overhead is network round trip delay time between client and server rather than the from the protocol itself. So there when many uh, like overhead, like many application opens on one desktop, so this called overhead. So this reason of overhead is network round trip delay time between client and server side. Okay, So this is the big limitation of X downsides. What is a client server separation? So network issue, in network issue, and X client cannot generally be detached from one server and reattached to the another. So as such, moving an entire session from one X server to another is generally not possible. So in this, we will discuss basic difference between GNOME and KDE. Okay, GNOME versus KDE. Here you see GNOME versus KDE. So I will tell you about a difference between a GNOME and KDE. First of all, what is GNOME? A desktop environment composed of free and open sources software that runs on Linux and most BDC derivatives. Okay. Now I'm talking about GNOME first. First point of GNOME. So a desktop environment, a GNOME desktop environment composed of, basically it composed of free and open source software that runs on Linux. But in the case of KDE, but in the case of KDE, a desktop working platform with a GUI released in form of an open source package. Okay. Again, I repeat, what is KDE? Definition of KDE: a desktop working platform with a GUI released in the form of an open source package. Now, second point of a genome is founded by a genome founded by Miguel D. Icaza, founded by Miguel D. Icaza and Federico Mena. So basically, genome founded by Miguel D. Icaza and Federico Mena. So KDE desktop basically founded by Matthias Etrich. So these are the person who founded the Genome and KDE. Genome founded by Miguel D. Icaza and Federico Mena, and KDE founded by Matthias Etrich. Okay. So Genome basically developed by the Genome project. Okay. So Genome basically developed by Genome project, and KDE developed by KDE community. KDE community. Okay. So next point of Genome is Genome basically released on 1999. Okay. So these are the basically desktops of Linux operating system: Genome desktop and KDE desktop. So Genome basically released on 1999. Fine. Where KDE released on 1996. Okay. 1996. If we are talking about Genome desktop, basically it requires 700 megahertz CPU and 768 MB RAM. Again, I repeat, if we are talking about a Genome environment, a Genome desktop, it requires 700 megahertz CPU and 768 MB RAM. But in the case of KDE desktop, so KDE requires a 1 gigahertz CPU and 615 MB RAM. Okay. So this is the basic requirements of GNOME and KDE. Okay. Where GNOME is a software and KDE is a software for a desktop environment, and this is basically not an environment. This provides environment to Linux operating system. Okay. Fine. So written basically Genome software who written sorry, a Genome written in C, C++, Python, and JavaScript language. Okay, Genome is a software that is written in C, C++, Python, and JavaScript, but KDE written in C++. Okay, in the case of Genome, it provides simplicity. It provides simplicity, accessibility, and ease of internationalization and localization. But in the case of KDE, it provides basic desktop functions. It provides basic desktop functions and its applications to perform daily tasks. To perform daily tasks. So, Genome is a simple, but KDE is a little bit complex. Not little bit, it's a complex. Genome is a uh, simple and KDE is complex. Where Genome uses a toolkit like GTK plus and KDE uses a tool kit like QT. Okay, the toolkit of a Genome is GTK plus and KDE tool kit is QT. Okay, so basically Genome is a very user friendly and this is KDE is not a user friendly. So basically these are the difference. This is the difference between Genome and KDE on the behalf of you're founded by, developed by, released by, requirement of megahertz and written languages in C++, C and JavaScript, and it provides simplicity, accessibility, and toolkits where Genome uses a toolkit like GTK plus and KDE uses a toolkit like QT. So Genome is a simple, but KDE is a complex. So Genome is a very user friendly, but KDE is a not very user friendly. So basically, in this lecture, we will discuss various desktops available in a Linux operating system. These are the desktops. Genome and KDE are very important for Linux operating system because it will provide graphical user interface environment to Linux operating system, like Windows operating system. Fine. So here genome basically, again here this is the definition of genome basically. So what is genome? Again I repeat, so genome is a free and open source software that runs on Linux and most BSD derivatives. Fine. GNU Network Object Model Environment, popularly known as GNOME, is a free and open source software used as a desktop environment, mostly on Unix or Linux-like operating system. Okay. So it is the default desktop environment on the many Linux distributions, such as your you can say Fedora, like Debian, like Red Hat Enterprise, like Linux, Cent operating system, your Oracle Linux, your Solaris, your for example your Kali Linux. Okay, so it provides a desktop environment mostly on Unix or Linux or like operating system. So it is written in Vala language, Vala language, C language, C++ language, Python language, and JavaScript language. So it is founded by Miguel de Icaza here, you see, and Federico Mena in 1999. Fine. So Genome as a project. So it was developed as a part of GNU project by the Genome project, the Genome project. So this project has a large number of contributors. Okay, large number of contributors. So it is a community developed software. So that's why it's called community developed software. The main contributor among them is a Red Hat. Who? Red Hat. Here you see Red Hat. This is the main contributor of GNU project, the Genome project. So the main contributor among them is Red Hat. The main objective, the main objective is to developing the GNU project was to develop frameworks that supports by the software development. Understand? So basically its objective is to develop software and its frameworks and application development also and marketing of its software. So these frameworks helps to program the end user applications. Understand? Fine. So there the official user interface of Genome desktop environment is the Genome Shell. So here are the Genome features of where Genome provides all the features of a usual desktop environment. Hence, it simplifies all the tasks which otherwise would not be possible while using a shell where commands are written. But in the way, it provides good usability and accessibility to the user. Okay. So basically, it is also capable of providing access to the application preferences, closing the application, and you can say creating a new application window. So the status menu contains the system status indicators to shortcuts to system settings. Okay. So basically, first feature of Genome is an open source desktop environment. Okay. No component of the interface is controlled solely by one company or restricted from modification. So that's why it's a open source and free desktop environment. Okay, there is no interface uh, component by any company or restricted from modification. So it is a community software, in other words any organization or person, however large or small, can contribute to Genome project. Okay, the Genome project. So Genome forces no programming language restrictions on developers. Okay, here are the some Genome features, like it's a core libraries are written in C language, which are fast and efficient. Okay, so basically in this Genome basically written in a Vala, C, C++, JavaScript, and Python language. Okay, and these are the very efficient languages nowadays. So it is available in 161 languages that makes it easier to use and understand by users. Okay, who? Genome, the Genome project. What is Genome? It is a desktop environment provide. Okay, so different icons can be put on the desktop for different purposes. So system can be browsed graphically. Who is system? We users. We can easily browse our folders or files graphically. Fine. So here associate application with the file of a particular type so that when you click file, it automatically loads the current application. Okay, so here you see this is the Genome desktop on your screen. Okay, here you can see this is the desktop of Genome project, the Genome project. Okay, so where you can see different types of folders, files, applications available on desktop. This is a user friendly basically as compared to KDE environment. So this is the Genome desktop where you can search any application, any folder, any drive from here, type to search. Okay, so this is the Genome desktop basically. Okay, so desktop environment KDE is a graphical. Now I'm going to tell you about KDE. So in previous slides, we will discuss the Genome project. What is Genome? Basic features of Genome. But now I'm going to tell you about what is a KDE desktop environment. So basically, the KDE is a desktop environment that allows carrying out daily tasks. Okay, like your copy paste, like your drag and drop, cut and paste, and without relying on the command line interface. Okay, so in KDE, there are two common products of KDE. One is your Plasma desktop, and second is your KDE frameworks. Understand? One is your there are two products, two common products of KDE are Plasma desktop and KDE frameworks. So, what is KDE? Basically, they are designed to run on Microsoft Windows also, your Android also, your Unix desktops also, etc. So, desktop environment is a graphical desktop environment for Unix and Linux kernel-based operating system. So, it provides a graphical desktop environment for Unix and Linux kernel based operating system. So here K does not have any meaning now, but initially it was perceived as cool. K means cool. K, KDE. Okay, cool desktop environment. So it was developed to create a beautiful, functional, and free desktop computing environment. Computing environment. So one thing I would like to say, KDE is a little bit complex desktop environment rather than Genome. Genome is very simple. Okay, so KDE, if we are talking about KDE desktop environment, it is written in C++ language, and its appearance is very much same like Windows operating system. Okay, so its appearance is very much same like Windows operating system. Okay, so the KD desktop mainly has a desktop icons like home, like trash and taskbar, which provides quick access to the system files. So KDE is a central development hub for many applications such as a Krita and Calligra suite. Okay, so these are very popular applications such as Krita and Calligra suite. Fine. So KDE Plasma provides like a unified environment for running and managing applications on desktop, notebooks, smartphones, like your tablets. So KDE applications such as uh, KTorrent, your KTorrent and KDE partition manager are built on top of KDE frameworks. Okay. Basically, KDE applications are portable between operating system. Okay, so you can delete system files also, import settings files also. So it provides all the capabilities of graphical user interface. So it allows the user to put icon on the desktop, to mount and unmount the removable disk also, browse the file system graphically. In the case of Windows operating system, it just seems like as a, so personalize the environment if you want, perform installation and uninstallation of packages. Here you see this is the KDE desktop, little bit complex, na? So little bit complex rather than Genome. So this is the desktop of K desktop environment, KDE, cool desktop environment. It's little bit complex rather than Genome desktop. So that's why Genome, your like your Genome is a provide simplicity, accessibility, like, and you can say ease of internationalization and localization. But it provides KDE cool development environment. It provides basically desktop functions, basic desktop functions, and its applications to perform daily tasks. Okay, so basically, KDE uses a toolkit like Kit Qt. Okay, and it is a complex. It's not very user friendly, but in the case of Genome, it's very user friendly. Again, I repeat, in the case of KDE, it's very complex rather than the Genome. But in it is a very it is not very user friendly. But in the case of a Genome, it is very user friendly. So again, I repeat, KDE, cool development environment, cool desktop environment. Basically, it is developed by KDE community. Who? KDE community, and founded by Matthias Etrich. KDE desktop environment basically founded by Matthias Etrich. Okay. If we will ask and discuss what is the simple definition of KDE. So it a desktop working platform, a desktop working platform with a GUI, with the GUI graphical user interface released in the form of an open source package. Released in the form of an open source package. But in the case of Genome, a desktop environment composed of free and open source software that runs on Linux and most BDC derivatives. Understand? So KDE as a project, again, I will tell you, it requires 1 gigahertz CPU and 615 MB RAM. So KD is not only a desktop environment, but also a huge project on which thousands of programmers are involved for the development and you can say distribution of application development, frameworks, guidelines, programming documentation, translation, testing, and packaging, resources, and other applications for the KD. That's why, that's why it developed by KDE community. Understand? KD community. All of the volunteers are working to provide free and open source software for desktop and portable computing. If we are talking about what is the basic difference between what basic difference, not in detail, what is the basic difference between Genome and KD? Sir, we don't know. Please tell. So I will tell you about the definition. Like Genome is a desktop environment composed of free and open source software that runs on Linux and most BDC derivatives. But in the case of KDE, is a desktop working platform with the GUI released in the form of an open source package. Sir, tell me who is the founders of Genome and KDE? Dear student, founders of Genome is Miguel de Icaza and Federico Mena are the founders of Genome, while Matthias Etrich is the founder of KDE. Understand? Sir, who is the what is the development of Genome and KDE? Basically, the development, the Genome project developed Genome, while KDE community developed KDE. Simple. So, one question, initial release. So, the Genome was released on 1999, while KDE was initially released on 1996. Okay. So tell me about what is the minimum system requirements of Genome and KD. So the simple answer is furthermore, the Genome requires your Genome desktop environment requires 700 megahertz CPU and 768 MB RAM. Simple. And what about KDE? KDE requires 1 gigahertz and CPU and 615 MB RAM. Simple. So tell me about written programming languages. While Genome is written in C, C++, Python, and JavaScript, okay, and KDE is mainly written in C++. Okay, so basic toolkit of tell me about a toolkit of Genome and Kde. In Genome, GTK plus toolkit is used. In Genome, the basic toolkit is your GTK plus. Fine. But in the case of your KDE, it uses QT kit used. Okay. So who is complex, Genome or KDE? Genome is simpler than KDE. It means KDE is a complex rather than Genome. So who is the friend? Who is a friendly in the nature, or who is a friendliness? So KDE is not very user friendly, but Genome is a friendly. So if we are talking about a nutshell of Genome and KDE, or you can say crux of Genome and KDE. So what is the main crux of Genome and KDE? So both dear student, kindly listen carefully. Both Genome and KDE are desktop environments. Provides basic desktop. It's not an environment. Again, I will tell you, it's not an environment. It's provide desktop environment. So the difference between Genome and KDE is that the Genome is a desktop environment that provides the simplicity, accessibility, and ease of internalization, where a KDE is a desktop environment that provides basic functions and applications to perform daily tasks. Understand? So this is whole about your Genome and KDE. So if we are talking about a KDE features, so KDE much more than a graphical interface at it offers many features while make it easy to work with these features. So it provides a single framework for application development. It is a free of cost, that is open source software. Okay. So it contains a set of about 150 utilities. It supports the management session also. So you can manipulate the object of your system and desktop file manager system. Okay, so it provides an object oriented environment in which we work instead of composing and typing at shell prompt. Okay, so many of these applications has a name starting with the letter K in your desktop environment. Okay, so KDE applications can be used in other desktop environments, and these are applications has a name starting with letter K. So some of its popular applications are Conquer. It is used for browse file. So it's a, like your browser. In the case of your Windows operating system, it's a Mozilla Firefox, your Google Chrome, Internet Explorer. But in the case of your KDE environment, KDE desktop, this is a Conquer. It is used to browse files and sometimes can be used as a browser. But in the case of your Windows operating system, there is a Microsoft Office. But in the case of a KDE desktop environment, it's a K Office. It is similar to Microsoft Office with K Word, K Present, Cal. So K Calc stands for K Calculator. Understand? So K Write is a KDE for editor. In the case of Windows operating system, there is a Notepad. Understand? K Write, it's a K editor. So common features of a KDE and Genome. So these are the common features, KDE and Genome. So these features in KD's desktop also and Genome desktop also. So both KD and Genome are desktop environments. So both provide some common features like a taskbar container in the case of a KDE and Genome. Okay, a main Genome like both KDE and Genome. These are the common features of KDE and Genome desktop environment. So basically, what is the summary of what we learned in this chapter? So in this chapter, we learned about X Windows system. So Genome and KDE. So X Windows system is an environment that supports graphical applications in Linux. Okay. So X provides the basic framework for a GUI, graphical user interface environment, such as you're interacting with the mouse and keyboard on the Windows operating system. Okay. Basically, it provides a uh, same environment like a Windows operating system in Linux operating system with the help of your GNOME and KDE environment. So these are the desktops of Linux operating system, GNOME and KDE, that provide graphical user interface environment. So the X Windows desktop system is an your advanced graphical computing and networking environment that mainly supports desktop environments like GNOME and KDE. But GNOME and KDE are desktop environments which runs on the X Windows system. Okay. So in this chapter, we learn about the Genome desktop and KDE desktop. So these are the desktop that provides environment that supports graphical applications in Linux operating system, where you can easily browse your folder, you can easily delete your files, you can easily install your applications like a Windows operating system when you search any file or folders easily through graphical user interface. So it provides same environment in your Linux operating system with the help of a GNOME desktop and KDE desktop. Okay. So in this lecture, we will learn what is GNOME and KDE, X Windows desktop, desktop of KD, KD tail. It is all about your and so much. Thank you so much.